Welcome to spinning. Spinning is taking fluff of some kind of fiber, plant, or animal, and turning it into yarn. It's very simple. We're just taking the fluff, which in its normal state, this is wool. If I try to just pull it apart, you see the fibers are nicely aligned. If I pull it, they just come right apart. And I would like to have yarn that stays together. So if I take this fluff that could just come apart, and I instead add a little bit of twist, so you can see I'm just doing it by hand, then I get yarn. Super strong. Doesn't come apart when I tug on it. So that's what we want to do. How do I get twist into this stuff? I don't want to do that by hand. So you use a wheel or a spindle of some kind. People use wheels that they sit at and they tread it with their feet. People have wheels that they sit at and they have a little electric motor that runs it. People have drop spindles where they suspend it and drop it and spin it. I'm going to use a supported spindle, so it's a stick with a point at the bottom. I have a little base for it that's kind of nice. And the spindle is just going to spin. So I'm going to spin it like that. And you can see down here that it's spinning. If you look at the flowers, you'll see that they're spin, spin, spin. So I'm going to use that to add spin instead of just twisting it with my fingers. So first I got to get the yarn started. It's a bit tricky. There's different ways to do it. Some people have a string leader that comes off. I take the top of the spindle and the fluff and I just like stab it. I stab the spindle into the fluff. I'm going to set it down. Then I'm going to hold it here where I've kind of stabbed it through. And I'm just going to turn it by hand. I'm going to make this a little bit thinner. I'm going to just turn it by hand, holding on to where I stabbed it so that it turns. Because otherwise, if I just turn the spindle, it'll just slip. So I'm going to hold it, turn it a little bit, turn, turn, turn. So it'll start to make nice yarn there, single ply yarn, and hold it. So I'll just do a little bit more. I just need a little bit of length so I can kind of manage what's happening here. So a little bit more. Okay, so now I have a few turns. So I'm going to just slide it down just a bit so it's out of the way. And I'm basically just wrapping this new yarn around that area that I had just poked through. So now we're down to business. I'm just going to add a bunch of twist and then make this thinner because I don't want yarn this thick. I mean, you might want yarn this thick. In this case, I don't. I don't want a giant bulky yarn. I want something more normal. So I'm going to add some twist. I'm going to just spin the spindle. I'm going to let it spin, 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 spin. And it's added in some twist here. And then I'm going to kind of draw this out. We call this drafting. So I'm just thinning down this lump of wool. I'm going to add some more twist. Spin, 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 spin. And then I'm going to let the twist come in. Draft this out a little bit. Spin, 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 spin. Draft it out. I call this park and draft. So I let it spin for a while. I got a bunch of twist up in here. You see how it's all kinked up like a pigtail. It's got a lot of twist in this area. I'm holding it here so the twist can't get too far up into my bundle. Then I stop the spinning. And now I'm going to deal with this twist. I'm going to let it slide up into here. So I'm going to draft, 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 draft out. And now that same amount of twist is over a larger area of yarn. So it's calmed down. So it's pigtailing, but in a nice way, not in a like, I'm going to knot on myself way. So that's great. I have a little bit more, so I'm going to wind it down on here. This is called the cop, where I'm just sort of winding it on. Same thing. Spin, 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 spin. Draft it out. Let that twist out into more yarn. Spin, 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 spin. Draft it out. Spin, spin, draft. Got a little bit there. You know, lots of choices. You can spin a lot here before you wind it down on here. You can move it all the time like I do. It's up to you. You get to do what makes sense to you, what works for your body and your brain. So that's spinning. Spin, 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 spin. Draft it out. Spin, 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 spin. Draft it out. Now, if I get too much twist up in here, I can't draft because I've basically just made a very wide yarn. So I can't, that's the point of spinning, is that it twists the fibers together so they don't come apart. So if I've twisted this whole big bundle in here, I'm not going to be able to get them apart. I'm not going to be able to draft them, which is frustrating. So you want to kind of, the art of it is controlling how much twist gets up in here, how far it gets. You're kind of managing the twist instead of just letting it do anything. So if you get into that situation and you don't want a big lump, you can do a little bit of untwisting. It's not the greatest habit to get into, but you can kind of untwist a little bit and then this relaxes back to the normal untwisted thing and you can draft some of it out. It's also as a learning point, you'll eventually get to the point where you aren't having to do that, hopefully, but I did that for years, so it's just a way to manage it. Do a little more, draft it out. The other thing that happens, so that was too much twist and I couldn't even draft out. The other thing that happens is if you aren't really on the other end of the spectrum, and you twist a little, and then you draft, you twist a little, and you draft. You don't really think, oh my God, it fell apart. Oh, what am I going to do now? This is super easy. No stress. Okay, I got the end here that came apart, drifted out. I take the end I was still holding. I just lay them on each other. Some people lay them on sideways. Some people lay them on parallel. So I'm just going to lay it on there. And I'm going to kind of hold them together. I'm going to add some more twists so that I have something to work with. And then I'm just going to start drafting out. Add a little bit more twist, draft out. Add a little more twist, draft. You never knew that it broke. Not a problem. And when you come to the end of your ball, you just start the next one. Draft it out. Twist, draft it out. Got a lot built up, so I'm going to wind it off. Wind it back down here. As you get more comfortable with it, you may be able to do what I'm doing, where I move beyond park and draft. You don't have to ever stop park. You can do park and draft forever. I absolutely give you permission to park and draft for the rest of your life. If you want, what actually happened to me, I parked and draft for years, and then one day I noticed I had let go of the spindle. So I didn't try to do it. I just noticed that it had happened. And part of that is, here we're going to talk about physics, is angular momentum. When this thing is spinning, it's like a top or a bicycle wheel. It wants to keep spinning, and it really resists falling over once it's spinning. It's called angular momentum, conservation of angular momentum. So once it's spinning, it can kind of manage itself. So I'm going to spin it, and then you're going to see I've let go of it. So I can spin, let go, and then keep drafting. Now you'll notice I kind of have, I kind of keep it in this circle of my fingers, just so that if I lose track of what's happening, it doesn't fall into the floor. It just like falls into my hand. So for me, that's kind of a little bit of a safety. So I do a little bit of twist, and then I'm sort of drafting while it's spinning in the background. But park and draft is awesome. You don't have to worry about it. There's no stress. You don't need to spin a certain way. For me, this is just a very relaxing hobby. Twist, 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 twist. And draft it out. Twist, 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 twist. Draft it out. Twist, 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 twist. Draft it out. So I do this for relaxation as a sort of a mindfulness technique. So I don't feel like I need to get really fancy with techniques. I don't need my yarn to be perfect. I just enjoy the act of it. This is a single that I'm spinning. Single because it's a single ply. Most of us tend to work with plied yarns when we're doing other things like weaving or knitting or crocheting or anything else you might be doing with your yarn. So eventually, when I'm done with this, I'm going to take it back off and I'm going to ply it against itself. So I often make 2-ply yarns. So I can emulate that by lighting a long piece here and then folding it in half, right? So I'm just going to hold the tip here. This is where the bend is. And then I've held these 2 ends together, and then I'm going to let it go, and it'll spiral up on itself into a nice 2-ply yarn. This one's a bit loosely plied, so this would be kind of frustrating to knit with because it'd split a lot, and your needles will get stuck in there. So normally I'd want to have a little bit tighter of a ply. And so there's a lot of technique to think about, because the ply depends on how much you twist it when you're plying and how twisted the yarn was to begin with. So I'm going to spin all in one direction as I'm spinning the single, and then when I ply the 2 singles together, I'm going to spin them in the opposite direction from where I spun. So it's going to unspin a little bit of the twist that I had in my single, and it's going to create the ply. So there's a lot of, subtlety and nuance that as you get better, you'll become more comfortable with it. But what I wanted to talk about today was just the basic idea. We're just adding twist, and I have a tool that helps me add the twist, and then I draft my lump out into a thinner string. So that's the heart of spinning. Just add some twist and then let it slide down as you glide those fibers apart.